There's been an insane update with the Evan Fournier situation that has said that the New York Knicks may pick up his $20 million team option if he's not traded by the deadline, and we have to talk about this. So what's up, guys? Welcome back to Knicks Digest. It's Chris here, and we are going to jump right into the video today because, as you may have heard, the New York Knicks might pick up the team option on Evan Fournier's contract, which is $20 million, by the way, if they do not trade Fournier at the deadline. Now, Fournier has played in 2 games this season, which means that he will be paid $10 million per game, which, first of all, is hysterical, but also, it's kind of, horrifying, because the Knicks have a bunch of guys who they have to pay. Jalen Brunson is going to be due for an extension in around a year and a half from now. OG Anunoby is due for an extension in 6 months from now. Julius Randle's only got so many more years left on his contract extension. The Knicks have some people to pay. Now, why would they pick up Evan Fournier's contract? It's fairly simple. It is so they could use him as a tradable contract while also not diminishing value by trading guys in their rotation, because any trade that the Knicks make for a star is going to be really just based off draft picks. The Knicks have 8 tradable draft picks in the first round. They'll probably trade at least 6 of them for some sort of star player, since they really don't have any other players who are like young assets outside of Quentin Grimes. And because of that, that is basically now put them in a situation where without RJ, without IQ, the Knicks are going to need to just back up the truck full of draft picks and potentially Grimes, depending on what the trade is, and then use Fournier's contract as the tradable contract so they don't have to trade someone in the rotation. You can use the expiring deal, which is helpful. But let's just look at what Bobby Marks had to say, because he was the one reporting on this. He basically said, if Fournier's not dealt by the trade deadline, I think there's a good chance that option gets exercised. For Fournier, if you let the deadline pass, are you going to exercise his option and bring him back on a $19 million salary and basically use it as a trade chip? If you do, great. But then you're going to have to pay OG, probably pay Hartenstein. Who knows what will happen with Precious? It all starts adding up. If you decline Fournier's option, then there's no trade. Then who are your tradable contracts? There's that business component of flipping Fournier for a contract for a $20 to $22 million player, DeJounte Murray or Malcolm Brogdon, maybe even Bogdan Bogdanovic. Who knows what's going to happen in Atlanta? If Fournier is not dealt by the trade deadline, I think there's a good chance that option gets exercised, and then New York figures it out because there's going to be somebody available who's disgruntled. And that's not all that he said. He also said that if Fournier, the original stuff where he said if Fournier is not dealt by the deadline, I think there's a good chance the option gets exercised, and then New York figures out what to do with it. But he also noted on the Hoops Hype podcast that someone is going to lose in the playoffs and someone is going to want to break up their group. Who knows who it's going to be? Is it going to be Donovan Mitchell? I don't know. Now, obviously, Donovan Mitchell has been sort of the guy who the Knicks have been chasing basically since Leon Rose took over as the president of the New York Knicks. There was that whole situation with Donovan going into the 2022-23 season that did not end up happening because Mitchell got traded to the Cavs in exchange for Lauri Markkanen, Ochai, and like 5 first-round picks, not to mention Colin Sexton also. And the Knicks just didn't want to pay the same amount that the Cavs wanted to pay. It made sense for the Cavs. It felt like they were trying to build around Evan Mobley, who never fully panned out. Now Mobley's injured. Also, Darius Garland is injured. And now Donovan Mitchell is back carrying a team, which is precisely what he did not want to do. He does not want to be the entire offense of a team. That's one of the main reasons why he left the Utah Jazz, is because he was upset that he was the entire team's offense. He just isolated every time, and he wasn't loving that. It wasn't initially his style of play coming into the NBA. And we've also talked about Donovan Mitchell so much that I've probably said exactly that verbatim like 5,000 times by now. But I do think there's a good chance that Donovan Mitchell is the guy who could be traded. And that does, on a side note, make me hope that we do not play the Cavs in the playoffs, because it becomes a lose-lose for the Knicks, where Kobe Altman is not going to want to trade Donovan Mitchell to the Knicks after Donovan Mitchell just lost to the Knicks. twice than this and 3 times to Jalen Brunson. But also, if the Knicks lose to the Cavs, then Donovan Mitchell's not going anywhere. So that would be sort of a lose-lose, despite how hilarious it would be if the Knicks and the Cavs matched up and the Knicks just smoked them once again. But whoever this trade guy is, and there's a few other options. I mean, we could see, like, potentially Brandon Ingram if the Pelicans keep sucking, and maybe some other guys who we're not even sure yet on teams that we didn't even think there would ever be a chance that a guy would become available. And it'll be some shocker over the offseason when it just says blank has requested a trade. And then the Knicks are going to go use all of their draft assets. And that is when they're going to need Fournier's contract, because the person who they'll be trading for probably is not going to be on a rookie deal. And you'll need that $20 to $22 million exchange. Also, the Knicks do have a $5 million trade exception that they did get for the OG Anunoby trade. So they have around $24 million to $25 million to work with. And you could trade for Malcolm Brogdon using Fournier's contract a few second rounders, hopefully. And then use Brogdon as a trade chip because you could just use his tradable contract because his contract goes into next season. Unlike Fournier's, unless you use the team option. So here's the deal. Like, I understand that when we see if this does happen, like the Knicks have picked up Evan Fournier's team option, we're going to get clowned by their fan bases who don't know what they're talking about, and we're going to get clowned by our own fan base who doesn't know what they're talking about. But also, I'll sort of be upset also because it's going to make financials kind of difficult. So I understand why Knicks fans would be upset. But it's not going to be what it looks like on the surface. He's not going to sit with the Knicks. If anything, the Knicks would just end up trading him for nothing. Like, trading Fournier and 2 second rounders for, like, cash. If they really need to get rid of his contract, you can do that. Again, it would be an expiring contract. A team like the Pistons, who are going to have $64 million in cap space this summer, they would take a few second rounders from the Knicks and Evan Fournier. So 1, you could give Cade more shooting, and 2, you could just add to your draft picks because you're the worst team in the NBA. So now, look, I don't think this is going to happen. I do think Fournier is going to get traded by the deadline. It just doesn't feel like the Knicks are done making trades. Like, clearly you're going to need some sort of isolation scoring off the bench, at least to some degree, and Malcolm Brogdon could be that guy, or it could be someone else like Jordan Clarkson, maybe even Colin Sexton. Hopefully they don't mess with the Jazz because Danny Ainge is... Well, he's Danny Ainge. We know how that works with Danny Ainge and the Knicks. We don't really even need to go into it. We all know that he's not going to trade with the Knicks unless he could jack the price up so high where basically there's no way the Knicks still have all their 8 first-rounders after trading Evan Fournier to the Jazz. And that cannot happen. They need to keep those first-rounders because they need to trade for a star. Because as great as this Knicks team is, they are devoid of that one more star player that would put them over the top. So Fournier's contract is very necessary, is basically what I'm saying. And speaking of Fournier's contract, here it is. He has spent this time with the Knicks, and since November of the 22-23 season, he has mainly spent that time on the bench watching Knicks games with courtside seats and getting paid $18 million after tax. It's probably more like $10 million per year just to do that. And that, I mean, on one side, yeah, it's an awesome life, but Fournier's going to be upset because he wants to play. He doesn't want to be on the bench. He's handled this like a pro, but he doesn't want to be on the bench. Now, the Knicks do have, again, they have that team option. Fournier does not decide what happens with his contract. It's going to be Leon Rose and the New York Knicks who are deciding. And what's probably going to be decided is that the Knicks, or what's really going to happen is the Knicks are probably not going to be the team making that decision. And he's going to get traded somewhere else. It's going to be looked at as an expiring deal. That team option is going to get declined, and Fournier is going to sign with some contender that needs shooters because that's the only thing that makes sense for a 31-year-old Evan Fournier at the moment. And really, I think that that's going to be what happens. I don't think that this is going to happen. I do think, however, if the Knicks don't make a trade, you do have to accept Fournier's team option. Again, it stays an expiring contract. You can buy him out of it anyway if any team wants it. You just need it for trade reasons. You need it for the financial trade reasons of the NBA. You don't really want to use Josh Hart as trade bait. You don't really want to use anyone in the start. You can't use anyone in the starting lineup. And that doesn't really leave many options. Like, again, the only real option becomes Josh Hart, who's an important part of this team. Tibbs loves him. Him and Jalen Brunson are like best friends. You really don't want to screw that one up. So I think that if you don't trade Fournier, you have to accept that team option, because I will guarantee the Knicks are going to make some sort of trade this summer. I think this is the time. Leon Rose came into the Knicks, and the general vibe was at some point they are going to make some big splash. He's just going to pull it off. He's going to do this the right way, but there is going to be a star trade that happens. He acquired the Knicks with a bunch of assets and not a ton of talent. He brought in a lot of talent naturally. Now it's time to trade for someone, and I do think the Knicks are going to do it. Whoever becomes available, I think the Knicks are just going to say, screw it. We have to make a move. We have to do something. Randall's 29. Brunson's 27. They're in their primes. The time is now. The NBA is sort of open right now. The Bucks aren't perfect. The Celtics aren't perfect. The 76ers aren't perfect. The closest team to perfection is the Denver Nuggets, who it's not like their bench is anything amazing. And outside of that, who's the second biggest threat in the Western Conference? The Clippers, who all of them are way past 30 years old. They're all injury prone. They've all struggled in the playoffs with the exception of Kawhi. I don't really think that there's going to be like that many teams that are going to have a chokehold on the NBA over the next 3 years. I think Leon Rose agrees, and I think because of that, the Knicks are going to try to use Fournier's contract to make a trade for someone, and you're going to need that tradable expiring deal. Does it have value? No. But as an expiring deal, being traded for a star player, it gives a team that's going to start tanking cap space, and tanking teams want two things: draft picks and cap space. That's what the Knicks can give them. That is what the Knicks can give them, and that is why the New York Knicks are in perfect position, even if they accept the team option of Evan Fournier, which if they don't trade him, they should. Thank you guys for watching. Subscribe to Knicks Digest, like the video, do all that good stuff. We'll be back. There's a Knicks game pretty early today. It's MLK Day as I'm filming this. You're going to see this soon before the Knicks game. We'll be on a post game, and then we'll probably have some other content for you guys. We're trying to get out 2 to 3 videos a day for you guys. Make sure to subscribe or you will miss out on some videos, and you don't want to miss anything. We'll report on any news, any rumors, any games. We're here for all of it. Knicks Digest to the moon, baby. Have a great day, and go Knicks.